Brown versus Board of Education started with Linda Brown's father, who sued the Topeka school system on her behalf. Linda Brown had to travel an hour and 20 minutes to school each way. If her bus was on time, she was dropped off at her school half an hour before it opened, which means that she was almost alone. Her bus stop was 6 blocks from her home. Across an unsafe railroad yard, and her school was 21 blocks from her home. Her neighborhood school that her white playmates attended was only 7 blocks from her home and required neither bus nor unsafe crossings to reach the school. By this time, segregation showed its meanest side not only in the daily life, also concerning schools. For example, the average expenditures for white students were higher than for blacks. Many of the black schools lacked indoor plumbing or heating. Schools for white students had far superior facilities. Teachers in black schools received less salaries than white teachers. In addition, white students had provided buses from their schools to pick up and drive them back home. In the court case, Brown vs. Board of Education, the Supreme Court dealt with 4 separate cases, each of which challenged the practice of legal segregation in the schools of one state: South Carolina, Virginia, Delaware, and Kansas. In each case, African American plaintiffs sought to invalidate laws that required or permitted the segregation of black and white school children. They challenged the prevailing constitutional beliefs, namely that separate but equal facilities did not violate the 14th Amendment guarantee of equal protection. The 14th Amendment addresses citizenship rights and equal protection of laws and was proposed in response to issues related to former slaves following the American Civil War. In short, it states not to deny their citizens equal protection of the law. Of course, history has shown that separate facilities were anything but equal. The colored counterparts to white facilities, transportation, and schools were consistently subpar and inferior. The idea of separate but equal was doing nothing more than extending the mistreatment of African Americans in the United States. One of the most prominent areas that displayed the ridiculousness of separate but equal claim was public education. African American schools were almost always inferior to their white counterparts in terms of facilities and resources. This was the claim of the plaintiffs in Brown vs. Board of Education. The Supreme Court finally ruled on these cases on May 14, 1954. The ruling was monumental. The Supreme Court found that, in regards to public education, the doctrine of separate but equal had no place. Brown vs. Board of Education is an unfinished revolution due to the fact that segregation in American education still thrives today. The disparity in quality of different school systems, the disproportionate ratio of minorities in inner cities, and the ongoing lack of racial diversity in higher education all point to a continuation of the same which plagued the Brown vs. Board of Education case in 1954.
What the outcome is going to be. And then he comes to the key line and he says, and we unanimously hold that separate but equal has no place in the Constitution.
Conclude that in the field of public education, the doctrine of separate but equal has no place. Separate educational facilities are inherently unequal. Therefore, we unanimously hold that the plaintiffs are deprived of the equal protection laws guaranteed by the 14th Amendment. Plessy v. Ferguson, in education is no more, and in practice, Plessy v. Ferguson itself is no more. The era of Jim Crow, constitutionally speaking, is over.